If you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Forgefather Seekers 10 Tips and Tricks. This video is taking a look at 10 tips and tricks for the new Salamanders Detachment Forgefather Seekers. I've been playing around with this detachment. I'd like to feel this detachment over the Firestorm Assault Force detachment. The 10 tips and tricks for this video, we have 2 ways to gain +1 to wounds. Forgefather Seekers is a shooting detachment. Vulkan has the Tacticus keyword. Take Infernus Marines. The Blazing Earth stratagem tips and tricks. The new Wrathful Inferno stratagem tips and tricks. We can build a Smash Captain. Immolator enhancement tips and tricks. Which transports do we want to take in our list? And what are some of our top units for this new detachment? Those will be our 10 tips and tricks for this video. Let's move on to tip number 1. Forgefather Seekers has 2 ways to gain +1 to the wound roll. The first way for Forgefather Seekers list to gain +1 to the wound roll is the Crucible of Battle stratagem. We do have to be within 6 inches of the target and the closest eligible target. We can use this stratagem in the shooting or the fight phase. The fight phase, it'll be much easier to use Crucible of Battle. The detachment rule adds +1 strength and assault to ranged weapons within 12 inches. That will give our entire army advance and shoot. Some ranged weapons, +1 strength combined with +1 to wound can create a semi +2 to the wound roll. A strength 4 weapon targets a toughness 4 unit. That will wound on a 4+. Have our ranged weapon within 12 inches. Now we have a strength 5 weapon, wounding that same target on a 3+. Have that unit within 6 inches, use Crucible of Battle. Now we wound that same toughness 4 target on a 2+. The second way to get +1 to wound is the Space Marine Army rule, Oath of Moment. Forgefather Seekers does push us towards torrent weapons, which are auto-hitting weapons, which won't get as much use out of Oath of Moment, but our melt weapons and any other weapon that is not a torrent weapon, including our melee weapons, will enjoy being able to reroll the hit roll with +1 to the wound roll from Oath of Moment. Until recently, technically the Forgefather Seekers was not written in a way to gain +1 to the wound from Oath of Moment. GW has released a new FAQ, Forgefather Seekers, and any of the new detachments for the Codex compliant Space Marines will have that +1 to the wound roll into the Oath of Moment target. This Salamanders detachment is a shooting first detachment. What does that mean? It means we have a lot more rules in the detachment that support shooting units instead of melee units. We can build melee lists, but they will not benefit from a lot of the rules in the Forgefather Seekers. The detachment rule only works on ranged weapons, strength within 12 inches of their target. All the Adeptus Astartes units in your army gain the assault ability, which will allow our army to advance and shoot. The detachment rule, 1 enhancement and 3 stratagems are used in the shooting phase. 2 more require shooting units. Armor of Content for 1 CP is our rare defensive stratagem. If 75% or more of the rules are leaning towards shooting, the shooting units seem to be the way to go. We can pull off some melee combinations with Adrax and Crucible of Battle. Melee is used as a tool to defend our shooting units in Forgefather Seekers. +1 strength and assault on our Astartes ranged weapons can push certain weapons into better breakpoints. Melta weapons from strength 9 to strength 10 are a good example, or the aggressor's Flamestorm gauntlets going from strength 4 to strength 5. With the new detachment came a new model and datasheet for Vulkan Hastan, and he now has the Tacticus keyword. Along with the Tacticus keyword change, there was a few other changes along with that datasheet. The Gauntlet of the Forge, his ranged weapon, has the pistol ability now. It can be shot in the shooting phase even if we are at engagement range. The Spear of Vulkan, his melee weapon, has devastating wounds now. His abilities, the Seeker of the Unfound, has a new sentence. The first time this model is set up on the battlefield, if he is inside a transport or reserves, we can wait until his actual model is on the battlefield to pick a Seeker of the Unfound objective. It allows a bit more time before we choose our objective, before we had to pick it at the start of the battle. What does Vulkan Hastan having the Tacticus keyword actually mean? This means we can finally put Vulkan Hastan inside all of the Primaris transports now. Before the new datasheet, he did not have the Tacticus keyword. Rhinos and Razorbacks were his taxi of choice. Rejoice Salamanders, Vulkan Hastan can finally embark inside Impulsors. Next up is Take Inferno Squad and Inferno Squad Tips and Tricks. The Strength 5 AP1 Torrent weapon with Ignores Cover Power Blaster is why I like this unit. Most infantry torrent weapons are Strength 4, sometimes AP0 as well. Even our aggressors only have a Strength 4, AP 0 torrent weapon with ignores cover. Strength 5, AP 1 ignores cover, gives the Infernus a lot more threat than it seems at first. Within 12 inches of the target, the Detachment rule Vulkan's Quest will now have these torrent weapons up to Strength 6. The reroll hits from Oath of the Moment won't help the Infernus Marines shooting, they have auto-hitting Torrent Pyroblaster. It will help when they get into melee. When we use them in a Salamander's list, we will have access to +1 to the wound roll from the Oath of the Moment target or Crucible of Battle. Now when we are within 12 inches, these Strength 6, AP 1, Damage 1 torrent weapons can threaten anything Toughness 5 and under, and decent damage to anything higher than Toughness 5. We can run these in either a 5 or 10 man unit. I prefer the bigger unit, but even the 5-mans do have a place. Even more so when we bring Vulkan his stand on the list, taking each Infernus Marine up to OC2. The 10-man has a maximum of 60 shot potential. Combine that with some characters to lead the Infernus and some detachment rules, this unit is cooking. Inferno squads can advance and perform an action, or shoot and perform an action in the Forgefather Seekers. They can run and score points, or burn things to death and score points. Blazing Earth tips and tricks. The Blazing Earth stratagem at the start of your opponent's charge phase. 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army equipped with 1 or more torrent weapons. Select 1 enemy unit, excluding monsters or vehicle units, and units with the fly keyword, within 12 inches and visible to your unit until the end of the phase. Each time that enemy unit declares a charge, subtract 2 from the charge roll. This does not stack with any other negative modifiers to the charge roll. There are a few things to note about this stratagem. First, we only need 1 model with a torrent weapon to use Blazing Earth. A intercessor squad with a sergeant with a hand flamer would allow us to use Blazing Earth. We can't use this on monsters, vehicles, or units with the fly keyword. The second thing to notice, the unit using this stratagem does not need to be the target of the charge. At the start of the opponent's charge phase, select a unit with a torrent weapon within 12 inches and visible to the enemy unit, and slap a -1 to the charge roll on that enemy unit. We could use Overwatch for 1 CP, but with 1 hand flamer, why bother? I can see this being very useful on an enemy unit that arrived this turn using Deep Strike or Reserves. -2 to the charge turns those already hard 9-inch charges into 11-inch charges. Brotherhood Strike Grey Knights are going to hate this stratagem. It is every time the unit declares a charge too, instead of only when they charge the Salamander's unit who use this stratagem. That means our opponent will have to be wary of any unit that has a torrent weapon that can slap on that -2 to their charge, even if they aren't charging the unit that is using this stratagem. Some games this will be very situational, others it will be a nightmare for the opponent. Wrathful Inferno tips and tricks. This is another stratagem. Your movement phase just after Adeptus Astartes infantry unit from your army falls back. Until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. I have a simple tip for the stratagem, don't forget about it. Blazing Earth, Wrathful Inferno, Immolator, all of these new fancy pants fire names, it can be hard to remember what is what. The new fallback and shoot stratagem is probably the best of the new addition to the detachment. It helps keeps our shooting units in the fight harder to tag us with consolidation moves. We could fall back from 1 CP and then barbecue that enemy unit. Can we build a Smash Captain? The answer is yes, but not that scary. The problem is making Salamander Smash Captain is the characters themselves, and the War-Tempered Artifice enhancement. Ideally for a Smash Captain, we want to be able to threaten Toughness 10 to Toughness 12 targets. War-Tempered Artifice only grants the bearer +3 strength. The Gravis Captain can equip Power Fist, which will make Strength 11, AP 2, Damage 2 Power Fist. There are some other options, a Chaplain on bike, a Justiciar or a Terminator Captain. We can build a high strength melee character. I would just bring Adrax Agatone instead. Which character for our Immolator enhancement? Our Immolator enhancement can be put on Adeptus Custodes model only. Add 1 to the attacks of torrent weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit. A Gravis Captain joined with aggressors to give the aggressors D6 +2 Flamestorm Gauntlet torrent shots. A Captain in Tacticus armor joined to Infernus is a good choice too. The Infernus Marines would have D6 +1 Pyroblaster torrent shots. We could also use Immolation Protocols for 1 CP with the Captain to reduce the cost of that stratagem. A Librarian joined to Infernus squad is an interesting option too. The unit would have a 4+ invulnerable save and a 4+ Funeral Pain to psychic attacks. Characters who can join aggressors or Infernus squads are the best characters for the Immolator enhancement. Our next tip is about transports. Now that Vulkan has the Tacticus keyword, and the detachment has one stratagem that needs transports in order to activate, that stratagem is Burning Vengeance. It is a bit situational, what shot the transport and how far away is that enemy unit. The unit inside can disembark and shoot at the enemy unit who shot at the transport. The transport needs to survive the enemy attack to do so. Armor of Content is the only real defensive stratagem. Transports are still a good choice to get our units around the board. Which transports should be taken to Forgefather Seekers? There are 3 transports that seem to be the most common played for our Salamanders in this detachment. The Land Raider Redeemer, the Impulsor, and the Repulsor Executioner. The Land Raider Redeemer has the largest transport capacity over these 3 transports at 14 with the scary Overwatch anti-infantry potential. The Impulsor is a cheap 7 model transport capacity vehicle. We can only transport models with the Tacticus keyword inside the Impulsor, so that's why it's a big deal that Vulkan has the Tacticus keyword now. The Impulsor Executioner only has a transport capacity of 7. It does have some of the best Space Marine anti-tank shooting points can buy, as well as some good anti-infantry guns. Here are some top units for the Forgefather Seekers detachment. First we have Adrax Agaton, one of the 2 Salamanders named characters. Adrax is a melee-focused character. He gives his units melee weapons, reroll wound rolls. It pairs well with the Blade Guard veterans. He also reduces the OC of units within engagement range by half. It does not hurt, he is a great looking model. Adrax gives a Salamander's list at least 1 unit with great melee potential. We need something to keep the enemy melee units off our shooting units. Next is Vulkan, the second of our Salamanders characters, and I would say he is the better of the 2. He adds utility and damage to a Salamander's list. Any Infernus model in the list gains 1 extra OC when we take Vulkan in a list. He gives any Torrent or Melta weapons reroll wounds into 1 enemy unit with the Forgefather ability. On top of it all, he is an absolute tank to take off his Seeker of the Unfound objective. When Vulkan is on the Seeker of the Unfound objective, he will have an OC of 10 and a 4+ Feel No Pain. Next is the Aggressors. They are one of my favorite Space Marine units. Luckily, it is a good unit for the Salamanders. A bit pricey right now, they are 100 points for 3 or 200 points for 6. We prefer the Flamestorm Gauntlets and the Forgefather Seekers. They are chunky models, toughness 6 with 3 wounds, only a 3+ save with no invulnerable. It does make them hard to kill with small arms fire, but easy to kill with AP2 damage 3 attacks. Once the unit has lost some models, the overall unit threat goes way down. Then we have Eradicators. This is one of the best anti-tank infantry units in the game. They can have 2 Melta rifles and 1 multi-Melta per 3 models, up to 6 models in a unit. Strength 9, AP4 damage 6 with Melta 2. The detachment rule takes them up to strength 10 within 12 inches with assault so we can advance and shoot these Eradicators. Their ability, Total Obliteration, will allow them to reroll their hit, wound and damage into vehicle and monster units. The Eradicators are in Gravis armor, so they have a movement of 5, toughness 6 with 3 wounds each. Last up we have Company Heroes. I wanted to mention this unit since they do make a good bodyguard units for Adrax Agaton or even better Vulkan. They are a bit expensive at 105 points, but it is a great unit to keep Vulkan safe. We also have the Intercessor Squad, a great utility unit. They are great for holding objectives. They can sticky objectives and then move on to grab another objective or do a secondary action. We also have the characters we talked about in the Immolator section. Let's finish the video with some final thoughts. These were my 10 tips and tricks part 1 for the Forgefather Seekers. I do have a part 2 more advanced guide in the channel pipeline. Forgefather Seekers shares a lot of the same rules as the Firestorm Assault Force. The ones that are different do give a Salamander's feel I wanted. Salamanders infantry pushing forward, purging the enemy with flames. I wish there was a detachment that buffed the Torrent and Melta weapons while buffing our survivability instead of our speed. Do you have any of your own tips and tricks for this detachment? Throw them down in the comments below. Subscribe for battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Channel members gain early access to videos and access to the channel Discord. Like always, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.